All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading up to the Boston area to catch up with Gary Meskell of Apex Baseball. Gary, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you, Rich?
I'm hanging in there. Yeah, you know, I keep telling people this Twitter machine's where it's at. Which is ironic compared to what we were just talking about, how Twitter, on the one hand, I say Twitter's not the end-all, be-all as far as a marketing tool, as far as a communication tool from trying to place players. I don't think it should be anybody's primary source. I think direct connection should be. But as far as, you know, being able to connect with people, it is a great first spot. And that's where I connected with you, is over on Twitter. So let me tell people you can find Gary at ApexBBA over on Twitter and ApexBBA.com that's his website. So Gary, why don't I step out of the way and let you give your brief background, tell us about your baseball background, and then tell us when and where Apex got its start, and tell us about the journey from there to where we are today.
All right. So my playing career wasn't that special. It was stereotypical baseball kid's life, I would say. Grew up in a city just outside of Boston, Somerville, Mass. Played Little League, Senior Little League. I played Rifkin ball, Legion ball. After high school, I decided to call it quits for personal reasons. I could have played college, but I decided not to, like I said, doing personal stuff. A few years, I would say like 10, 15 years after graduation, a couple of my buddies came by that did play, and they were like, you got to start coaching youth baseball. They need coaches. And that's kind of where I got my feet wet. And then from there, now I'm coaching high school, coaching middle school. I used to coach Babe Ruth, and I was on the Little League board in the city. And now I'm running my own program, Apex, due to the experiences that I've had within those programs, because seeing there's a huge transition taking place in the youth baseball world right now. So that's where I kind of stand.
Yeah, I tell you what, when we spoke last week and you told me about that whole background, I kind of love that story. It's like, I think a lot of people sort of look past, from a coaching perspective, they look past the Little League and the Babe Ruth, even middle school. So in my world, in the recruiting world, everybody is so hyper-focused on travel baseball and high school baseball, which is fine. But I tell you what, you can really figure out, hey, is this coaching thing something that I really want to pursue? Is this something I love? By jumping in at the local Babe Ruth, or if there's American Legion in your area, or obviously the Little League. So what? Tell us about how your buddy just comes by and just randomly is like, hey, you should coach a Little League. Like, go a little deeper into that story for us.
All right, so. Like I said, I was probably about 10 years or so out of baseball. A couple of my buddies who have been coaching youth ball in our city for a while, who just got, they got out of college a little bit before that, but they've been coaching. They're like, you should try to coach. So I told them, I don't know if I'm going to get along with the kids very well. That was my one worry.
Why? Just because you hadn't been around kids and that much, because you're.
Well, I didn't work over the summer, recreation department, things like that. I didn't have any experience with kids, and I'm a very passionate person. So, like I told you, Rich, when I agreed to it, my buddy's telling me, hey, like we're gonna have practice like once a week, whatever. And I'm like, no, we're gonna practice 3 times a week, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna practice more than we play games. And he's just like, I don't know, like. We'll see. I'll try to ask the guy who's in charge. And we ended up doing what I asked. And what I learned from that is kind of what I worried about was I had kids telling me, like, you're not going to be able to fix this program, X, Y, Z. even adults that were negative about it, if I'm being honest, because I started going around the fort in the city, like I said, and that was really my main worry is like, I know if I commit to this, I'm going to want to do it right. And I knew the perspective of the youth department in the city and the vibe youth baseball has, or had rather, because it's improved drastically since. In terms of this is like a lot of negativity around it. So it was mainly being worried about not being able to achieve what I wanted to achieve because nobody else really had the drive or the passion to match that, at least in the youth and the city level. So that's
So you jump in and you don't just tiptoe in. You go. You're like, if I'm going to do this, we're going all in. We're gonna run practices multiple days a week. We're playing games a couple days a week. So it became almost an everyday type of thing, right?
Well, exactly. And it got to the point where the guy who ran Babe Ruth for the city actually got permits for 7 days a week, and I would run practices for every team within the league because most of the other teams were parent coached or what have you. So on occasion, I'd have the parents come down and I'd assign them to a drill. I'd show them how to do the drill, and then that's how we would function. And that's like when I very first started. So over time, that just became the standard. Even in winter, we'd get the cages. I would run for every kid in the program. I would run the cages. We'd have 3 different time slots, and that's how it would function.
I think you kind of glaze past that, but I think that's worth reiterating. Like, you're one person, but there's other parents. The parents want to be helpful. So it sounded like, this is what I heard. You would show a parent how to run a station, and then you would walk away to go do a different station, but that parent would be left behind to run that station. I think that's brilliant, and that might sound really simple, but like, how many fields have you been to where there's maybe 2 coaches and there's 20 or 25 players? Well, yeah. Why not pull a parent in from the stands and say, hey, here's a softball station. Do the soft toss. Here's a station to do some defense. This is not complicated stuff. Just do it. And now all of a sudden you can have a whole lot better player to adult ratio. Like, you can set up 12 stations if you pull some parents down. That's a pretty good idea. What gave you the idea to do that? Just being like shorthanded? You needed a warm body to run a drill? Like, where'd that come up from?
Well, to be honest with you, it's the mindset of the kids. So I always am thinking of, what do the kids want, basically. And what I mean by that is if I'm one person running a practice and I'm hitting ground balls to a group of 15 kids, 18 kids, whatever the group size may be, maybe more, those kids are going to get 1 rep every few minutes. That's not fun. We're competing up here. We're competing with hockey. We're competing with basketball. We're competing with soccer. Multi-sport athlete, multiple sports within the same season is very popular in our area. So, and also, to go back to the multi-sport athlete thing, is you have a lot of kids transitioning to this single sport focus. And baseball up in the northeast, at least, I know in the south and the west a little bit, it's different, but it's a small fish. It's small. If we're being honest, soccer's taking over up in the northeast. Hockey is kind of dwindling behind, but basketball, it would go soccer, basketball, baseball from what I've seen, and I watch all the youth sports around here. So, where, like I said, in Texas and Florida, that might be different. Baseball and football might be top cows down there, but here it's a little different. So I understand the mindset of the kids from the city that specifically that I'm working in surrounding cities, and I know that if I don't try to keep up the practice pace, then we're ultimately going to lose those kids by the time they get to high school, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I tell you, I think that's from a practice standpoint. I think the standing around is probably one of the fastest ways to bore a kid right out of the sport. Yeah, you got to keep them engaged and got to keep them moving. Got to keep the ball going. You know what I mean? Like I've seen some people who run like a 4-hour practice, and you're like, yeah, but your kid's only got like 7 reps. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's so much standing around. So that's a great way to combat that. Is just like, okay, you personally can run one station or one drill. Well, let's pull down a bunch of other parents, show them the drill, and do the drill, and have 10 different stations. Keep people moving, and your reps are going to be multiplied. By being able to do that. So, so you spent some quality time at the Little League, the Babe Ruth, and then I think you said you're even doing middle school and high school baseball. Like,
yeah,
you don't turn away many opportunities to coach, do you?
No, because the reason why, and it's kind of the same reason why I actually attend the World Baseball Coaches Convention almost every year down in Connecticut, is because if I go into a room and watch a presentation and I take one thing out of it, then I know it's a good learning experience. So to give you an idea, maybe 4 years back, in the spring, I was coaching high school, Babe Ruth, and AAU all in the same season.
That's funny. I don't know how. You mentioned the World Baseball Coaches Convention. I'll give a shout out. I've been to that several times. I haven't been in a few years. But that is the coaching clinic that's over at the Mohegan Sun. If there's any coach who's listening, here's what I would tell you. I know a lot of you guys get a little bit of you get that side eye from your wife or girlfriend because you're going to be going away for a long weekend. They think it's a boondoggle for you to go, a party for a weekend, right? That's what it. Do yourself a favor. Take your wife, take your girlfriend, do your baseball during the day. This is Mohegan Sun is one of the largest casinos, but I don't gamble. Never played a hand of cards for money in my life. But there are shows and there are restaurants galore and there is shopping. And so, coaches, trust me, take your wife, take your girlfriend, and they will have more fun than you, and you won't get the side eye from them. Okay? You know what I'm talking about. So you won't get crushed. You won't get crushed for leaving them home and not taking them. That's a good one to take them to. Trust me when I say that. Back to Apex. So eventually, you start. You're coaching Little League. You're coaching Babe Ruth. You're coaching the middle school. You're coaching high school. You're coaching. Seems like everywhere. At some point, Apex Baseball is founded. When did when did this idea first come to fruition?
Well, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, actually. So the account that I'm using on Twitter actually was originally just my personal account. Mm-hmm. And then I transferred it over to Apex. And I probably had around 500, 600 followers. I've doubled it since. But a lot of I started to realize that you had guys like Rob Bruno, like I referenced when we talked, Next Level Baseball. I started to follow a lot of these AAU programs, and from afar I was watching the AAU and travel baseball space, and as well as I knew kids who I was coaching in Babe Ruth in high school, so on, that were doing it. So I was getting information through them. I was kind of watching from afar. I was going to games. I was going to practices as I could. I was just trying to get an idea of the whole landscape because, like most people that are on Twitter that are of the older ages who aren't involved with AAU, or maybe their kid is, but they don't really know as much, I wanted to learn. But just like you were just saying about my opportunities about coaching and any opportunity to coach I would jump on, I approached that with everything. So, so basically what happened was 4 or 5 years ago, I had a couple kids who I was coaching in Babe Ruth who were playing AAU, and they were dissatisfied, Frank. And I'm not going to say what program, because the program's been on here. And basically came together and they said, Gary, I need you to start a program up. And I said, okay, let me think about it because this is a tall ask. And they ended up being maybe 6 or 7 kids from that same program who asked me to do it. And I don't like taking kids from programs, but when the kids are asking me, that's a different story. It's not necessarily me going to the kids and being like, hey, let's leave that place. I despise that so much. I think I've expressed that to you probably on another phone call. And I called Rob from NorCal up after I had these conversations with these kids because, I mean, Rob's very well respected. He was probably the person I talked to the most, or one of the people I talked to the most on Twitter at the time. And Rob basically gave me the layout of what he thinks I should do with my baseball experience and what have you. He said, start nonprofit, and which I did, and which I continue to do to this day. I haven't made $1 off of it, believe it or not. I know people say, "Oh, nonprofit, you can make money." No, I haven't made a cent off of this. Every cent that comes into the program goes back to the kids and then some. And then he told me, and to the kind of carrying on to that, Rob said, "Don't expect to make a dime." That's what he said to me. He said, "Don't expect to make a dime from this." And I said, "Okay, that's fair." Then I asked him about a facility, and he said, "You really don't need a facility. You can rent." He actually used to own, and now I think they rent over in NorCal. And then he explained why. He was like, there's too many dynamics and variables to make that successful, especially for a program that's starting off. So we start small, and I'm going to stay small. So right now we're running only 3 teams, 15, 16, and 17, and that's high school ages. And I might end up adding a 14 to that, and we're kind of slowly transitioning over into grad class as a program because ultimately that matters more, in my opinion, than age, especially when talking about college recruitment, and that's what travel ball is supposed to be about, is development and getting to college recruited. So the reason why I started it was I was being asked by local kids to start it up. They had friends from surrounding towns, and that's kind of how we started our first team, and we did it the following fall, and things went well, and we've been going ever since. A huge reason why I ended up agreeing to doing it is because I watched the experience those kids were going through, as well as in terms of Babe Ruth and Little League, high school, middle school. While you heard me say I involve the parents a lot, there's also a toxicity level within the parenting environment within those zones, for lack of a better word. So I wanted to kind of be on the forefront, and so if I sent you my email that I send out every year, it's basically like, listen, like, you've coached your kids since T-ball, and this is not to be condescending or negative, but odds are your kids know as much as you by the time they get to high school, if not more, if they're being taught properly. And like I said, that's not to be condescending. Are there dads and parents and moms that probably know more than their kid at that point? Absolutely. But is it less likely that that's the case? That's also true. So I found that there was a lot of, like I said, disgruntled parents and youth in recreational baseball, and I kind of wanted to get out of it for that reason. People had more problems to present than solutions, and that's really kind of, like I said, what made me say, okay, fine, I'll give this a shot. So that's kind of how we started off, and that's the reason why I transitioned from youth and rec to AAU.
And what age group was that first team?
They were at the time they were 14U transitioning into 15.
And that crew is literally, those guys are your first wave of players coming through right now. So these guys are like juniors and seniors in high school?
That's correct. A couple. So, like I said, we're transitioning from age to grad class now. That's like kind of the transition I'm trying to make with the program. And that grad class, or grade rather, because that's what it was at the beginning, actually had the only 2023, actually, from what I remember, commit last summer, which was important for our program because people are skeptical, right? So you start up a new program, people are like, who is this guy? He's been coaching youth ball, whatever. And we got a few commits last summer, but one of the kids who started off with the program from the beginning committed to UMass Boston, which has gone to the, regional and college World Series numerous times over the last decade. And they just got a guy drafted, actually. So that's pretty cool to see. And then this year coming up, as you know, within the next 12 months or so, a lot of people are going to see that our program has a lot of kids who are college baseball ready. This summer, we're going to have 3 kids in the 90s, and one of them is going to be a 2025. So that a lot of people are going to start seeing what's actually transpiring with our program, which is huge, because I think right now, while I do, Instagram and Twitter and social media, and a lot of, like you said, or we said before the conversation, it's like I use Instagram for the kids. A lot of the kids know about our program, but they don't really know about our program. And even there's some parents behind the scenes who are really skeptical because, I'm not, some MLB guy, or I'm not some big name ex-college coach or whatever, and they're skeptical, but there's a reason why my retention rate within my program over the last 3 years is extremely high. And the reason why that is because the kids feel like they're a part of something bigger. And that's, their opinions.
Well, listen, I mean, the reality is everybody had to start somewhere, right? Like, the biggest of the biggest, they started with 0 commitments. They all did. And I'll tell you what, so I'm on your commits page on the website, and it looks like 3 guys here, a guy from the 2022 class, and then two guys from the 2023 class, and I know there's going to be more added to that list. They all started with 0. It's kind of neat. We had a coach on here who, the day I spoke to him, that program had their very first college commitment, and you know what? Listen. We featured guys from the biggest and best and oldest programs out there. Rob Bruno being one of them, biggest, best, oldest, all fit, all describe Bruno and what he's done with NorCal. By the way, he was one of our first interviews. If you've heard his name dropped in this episode and you're not familiar, you can go listen and get to know him at playinschool.com/Bruno. But listen, I don't just want to talk to the biggest, best, and oldest, and that's why I like talking to guys like you who are starting something fresh from the ground up. It's it's pretty cool, and I think the biggest part is like sticking with it and seeing it through, right? Like, because if you don't, you can't get to your 100th commitment if you don't have stick-to-itiveness. And that's one of the things that, maybe 15 years ago that was easier because there wasn't so much competition, certainly. But anybody who's an upstart, who is putting themselves out there and, putting their name out there, you're gonna have to have some stick-to-itiveness and you got your guys because they left somewhere else. Well, guess what? Some of your guys are going to leave. It's just part of the deal, and you're going to have to work through that, and persevere. And then all of a sudden you will have been here for 5 years, and then 5 years from that 10 years. Now all of a sudden you're not the new guy on the block. Pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. So this coming next year you will have you're gonna run 3 teams. You'll have a 24, 25, and a 26. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, this next summer is going to be 24, 25, and 26. And the 26 team has a couple of 27s that are advanced.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, we see. Yeah, see that, especially at that age group. You'll see guys. I mean, honestly, on a lot of rosters, you'll see kind of a blend. You'll see some 24s or 25s with the 24s. That happens. It is what it is. One of the things that's up in your area, and I'm looking. You got UMass Boston. That's a powerhouse D3. You got another kid who committed to Haverford. There is, you might fall into a little bit of a niche where you're the high academic guy up there. I mean, obviously Boston is sort of generally known as a very high academic area, so that's not a bad thing to fall into if that begins to be a thing for you. So,
well, our program's average GPA is at least for our 24 group is somewhere around a 4.
Yeah,
so it's a high 3. I would say, but most of my guys are about a 4, and one of them's actually going to try to be valedictorian. So,
yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, listen, I always send over some questions ahead of time. And I'd like to sort of get your take on a couple of these, and that always seems to take us down a few different rabbit holes. But let me give you this first one. It's sort of usually a softball, but I like this because it adds to my library every time. What book or movie or website, any resource, a Twitter page, anything like that, a magazine, anything that you've learned from? What is a resource, a book, movie, even that you recommend to all your coaching buddies? What's something that you lean on that you think coaches should also lean on?
So this actually goes hand in hand with coaches and players. So I actually have 2 movies that I'd suggest, and I think one of them not a lot of people know about, and I've actually had players watch it. And the movie isn't even a baseball movie. It's just a general coach's movie. It's a rugby movie, and that's Forever Strong. So the purpose of Forever Strong, not without giving away the whole story, is, kid grows up with his dad's the high school coach. His dad's rather abrasive. Kid likes to party and drink on weekends like a lot of high school kids. Ends up getting in an accident with his girlfriend. Gets put away and sent away. That's the first 5 minutes of the story. From there, the place they send him to is ultimately where the story begins. And the whole point, anyways, of the story, without giving away the details, is he's trying. The coach, Coach Gelwix, is based on a true story. He ran the most winningest program in rugby history, and his main priority as a program was to help these men grow into young adults. And he mentored them both on and off the field, teaching them life lessons. And this is actually, I have a quote here that he used in the movie. It's good decisions don't make life easy, but they make life easier. And I think that is something that a lot of coaches and players can resonate with, because I think people struggle with, making the right decision, even though the right decision doesn't necessarily guarantee that there's not going to be stressful moments or other stressful decisions that come up in life. So Forever Strong is a great one to watch. I'm trying not to too much.
I love that quote. And it definitely rings true. Something I've been thinking a lot about lately is trying to remind myself that most decisions we make are totally reversible. It's like I think it's easy to fall for this idea that it's like every decision's life and death, and if we make this decision, that's it. And I'm like, no, man, a lot of stuff you do can be, hey, if it doesn't work, reverse it. Go, you know what I mean? You can A/B test. You can A/B test the whole way. And I feel like that has given me the opportunity to lower the perceived risk of certain decisions. So anyway, I've never seen that movie, and I love throwing on a good movie on Netflix or Amazon Prime. So I'm gonna check that one out for sure.
If you've seen Never Back Down before, Sean Ferris is the main character in Never Back Down. I'm sure a lot of people have seen that movie if you just look it up. He's the main character in Forever Strong as well. Another point I want to bring up about the movie is they had one team rule, and the one team rule was, and he explains it later in the movie to Sean, the character Sean's playing, is they don't have any rule besides don't do anything that disrespects you, your family, your teammates. And I think that's pretty simple. I think that as long as you do things that aren't going to, make your family, your teammates, or yourself look bad or feel bad, then odds are that you're going to have a good, a good moral compass. You're gonna be intact. You're not gonna have to worry about anything else. As long as you remind yourself of that every single time that you make that good decision that he was talking about within that quote. You're always working towards.
Yeah, there's something about rules when I like this idea where you can just have like one rule that basically covers everything, and that way you don't need 100 rules that are like micromanaging. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like one rule that can cover everything. I just think it's when you're about to do something, you can just say, hey, does this satisfy the rule? Or am I breaking the rule? Cool, man. Cool. Besides that one, is there anything else that you're recommending to players or parents or coaches?
So the other one would be The Final Season. Have you seen that one?
No, man, you're hitting me with
baseball. Which
one's that one?
It's a high school baseball movie based on a real story. They won the national title. The city tried to pull the school. They ended up trying to hire the dude who was a volleyball coach. It's with It's with Sean Astin. Let's see. I actually have popped up right here because I have it in my notes.
Dude, he's the guy from Goonies. Wait, he's in both movies, right? He's in both movies you just recommended.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
That's crazy. So basically, you love all movies with Rudy because I think Rudy's going to go on the list just by default. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Very good. And that's called The Final
Season.
I've never seen that. And it's a baseball movie?
It's actually funny. I found it on Amazon. It's about Norway High School Tigers baseball. They won 19 state titles in Iowa. And the head coach ended up being fired. I forget. I don't want to give away the whole story. But they end up trying to hire the guy from the Goonies, as you put it. And he was a volleyball coach. And the reason why they were trying to do that was because the parents behind the baseball program were trying to fight to keeping the school and the baseball program intact. And, the story kind of goes from there. But it's a great movie to watch. There's a lot of good learning experiences for especially young coaches because obviously you hire a volleyball coach to coach a national title high school program. The expectations are rather high. Going to get some abrasive players and parents to begin with.
Couple good ones there, and obviously the Goonies / Rudy connection is great. It's kind of funny that my mind goes straight to Goonies instead of Rudy. I don't know why. I find that to be a little bit funny. Maybe because I've seen Goonies more recently since I've got a soon-to-be 7-year-old in the house. He thought Goonies was awesome. All right, let me. All right, so this question is directly applicable to your last couple years of your life. So, what is one piece of advice you'd give someone that's just thinking about starting up their own program?
Do it for the right reasons is my first one I have written down. The reason why I feel this way, it's funny because most of my beliefs go across the board, regardless of if we're talking baseball, if we're talking life, if we're talking work, whatever it may be. And the reason why I say do it for the right reason is because if you take care of the baseball side of things, if you take care of the kids, then they'll take care of you. It's in the philosophy that kind of correlates onto the field is I feel as though if we develop players, winning will come naturally. So I feel the same way about building a program is if you do it for the right reasons, then your business will fall into place. If you and a lot of people are going to say, I do it for the right reasons. I don't feel that most people genuinely do it for the right reasons. And the reason why I say that is because I know a lot of the shady stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So that's why I think it's important for us to stress that doing it for the right reason, offering a good product will naturally allow you to win long term in this space. And like I said, if you develop players on the field, then winning will naturally come. Where I think a lot of programs are too busy trying to, and I've seen this on Twitter a lot, and a lot of people agree with me, is too many travel programs are trying to be the GM and not trying to be the coach. And that what I mean by that is they're trying to get together a roster that allows them to win right away rather than actually taking what they have and building something. So that would be my number one advice. My number two advice, we talked about a little bit on the phone the other day, and I'm very adamant about this, is I don't believe in carrying more than one team per age group. And the reason why I believe this is because you need to make sure that you have an adequate amount of qualified coaches who are in it for the right reasons, as I presented in point one. And I got to be honest, like, travel baseball space is turned into a business. I get that. I understand that. But once again, if we take care of the on-field stuff, the players, the development, that's all going to fall into place. So the reason why I say don't have more than one team per age group is because odds are your B team is going to be watered down compared to your A team. And what does that mean? That means that your B team is going to have, odds are, a different coach who may or may not have your. So let me jump into this a different way. Within our program, I can tell you that more than half of these kids, and people always talk about like baseball, what's the word? Turnover, like travel baseball turnover. There's so much of it, and there is. But why is there so much of it? Everyone on Twitter is too busy trying to blame the kids. It's not the kids. It's the travel program. That's the truth. It's the travel program's fault. Never do I, like I said earlier in this interview, never do I blame the kids. You always have to look at yourself in the mirror. And if you have kids leaving your program, sure, maybe the program's not the right fit. Maybe they don't like the way you approach something. That's fine. But more times than not, if you speak to parents and players and you've created a bond with them in an open conversation and honesty, they're going to tell you that, like, I had a kid who just joined our 25 team who was coached by a parent last year, and that team was running 3 catchers, and he was the odd man out, and he caught 1 in every 5 games. He sat on the bench the other 4. So, once again, do things for the right reasons. Don't carry more than one team per age group, especially if you don't have someone who knows how to run a program and they're not prioritizing development. And that's just kind of how I stand. It's I've just seen too many bad situations, especially in the Northeast, where programs are carrying 30, 40 teams, but they only have 3 or 4 qualified guys to run those teams. So,
yeah, I can feel that. I can also play a little bit of devil's advocate. But it all comes down to communication and expectations. I would encourage any of the programs that are running multiple teams per age group, like, just communicate with the parents and tell them there is a difference between the A team, the B team, the C team, the D team. Yes, there is. And here's what those mean. Here's what the differences are going to be. And, and here's what the expectation is. Don't assume that parents know what being on the C team means. Don't assume they know what being on the B team or A team means. Make sure that you're super clear. I would go so far as to make sure it's on paper so that there is no chance of confusion. Because listen, man, if they don't play for you, they're going to go down the street and go play for somebody, right? So I used to think a lot like you, probably 15 years ago, and I just realized, listen, they're going to play somewhere. So it's like, you can give them an opportunity, or somebody else is going to give them an opportunity. they're gonna play. But just like the organizations who are going to go with multiple teams per age group, they just need to be super clear with their communication and say, listen, this team is going to play this type of schedule. They're going to do this type of practices, and this is our goals. And the other team is, here's what the expectation is. Just be like super, super extra crystal clear. And I would really recommend putting it down on paper so that nobody can come back, 6 weekends in and be like, this isn't what we signed up for. No, actually it is. You did sign up for this, and here it is on the email that was sent to you, and you agreed that this was an okay place for your kid. Like, so I'm not saying I like your philosophy. I like your approach, and I think I even said this quote before we hit recording about something else. I forget what we were talking about, but I was like, bigger's not better, right? Like just having, 50 teams in your organization does not mean it's better, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. And so having 3 teams in your organization doesn't mean it's worse. It just means like that's what you want to do, which is awesome.
I think you nailed it though, Rich. It's about honesty. And that's really what it comes down to, right? If your third or fourth team is named the Apex Nationals, what do you think those kids think when you don't give an explanation, or those parents think when you're signing up for Apex National? Oh, my kid's so good, he's playing for.
He's on the national team, yeah.
Yeah, so it's misleading, and that's the problem. Is most of these programs that I'm targeting with my thoughts and my statements are the ones who aren't doing what you just described, aren't explaining to them. They're instead baiting them through labels and names and branding, and they're just teaching off of the innocent, ignorant, for lack of a better word, parents and players as well. So that's kind of where my frustration stems.
Well, it is funny. It's like, obviously, within the travel ball space, we see the same things every single year, and you're like, man, doesn't anybody ever learn from this stuff? Like, but then you have to remind yourself, oh wait, this is a whole new crop of people. Like, so they don't have the experience that the guys last year had, and so they have to learn everything on the fly. Which is, I mean, for those of us who've been in this space a long time, it's frustrating to say. It's like, wait, I've said the same thing a zillion times now. Oh wait, they've never heard it. Like, they've literally never heard it because they're brand new here, and so you gotta, it's like, man. All we can do is try and keep educating, even if we have to say it a zillionth and first time. You know what I mean? So, well, listen. This has been fun. I think there's been a couple good nuggets in here that hopefully people will pull out and learn from. You and I are going to keep in touch. I see no reason that you're not going to just keep growing and persevere through the next 3, 5, 10 years and continue to grow. And grow might, grow is going to mean maybe something different to you than it does to somebody else. So, but yeah, man. Again, this is Gary Meskell at Apex BBA over on Twitter and apexbba.com over on the internet. Gary, don't go anywhere. Actually, let me give you a final shot. Is there any last, parting word that you'd like to say to any moms, dads, players, coaches who might still be listening?
I guess for shout-outs, I'd give shout-outs to all the kids who have bought into what I sell and understand what my real reasoning behind being a part of this program or running this program is, as well as coaching in general. Without those players, and most of those players started with this 24 group, none of this would be possible. And they know that because I've told them that time and time again. And even the kids who have joined us in the 2025 group, they understand, like, this is part of their legacy too. And that's kind of what I want to, tell to people, is that I want to make sure that people feel like they're part of something bigger. So
yeah, cool.
what it is.
Cool. Hey, don't hang up yet. I'll stop the recording, but don't hang up yet. I appreciate you coming on. This was fun.
All right, no problem, man.
All right, don't hang up.
I'm here.